You're listening to the Trade Show Insights Podcast, Season 15, Episode 19. I'm your host and exhibit marketing strategist, Marlis Arnold, bringing you tools to improve your exhibit results. On today's episode, brought to you by the Exhibit Marketers Cafe, we've got a rebroadcast of our virtual lunch where we're talking about how to break through the roadblocks and unleash your creativity. Some of our guests that we've had on this year are, some people I've known for a long time. Some of you I've known for a long time. Some of our guests are people that I've just discovered this year at maybe one of the other virtual conferences that I've attended. Today's guest, I actually met when I was still a teenager. And we collaborated on our very first creative project the year we were dating. I was editor of the college yearbook, and he was the photo editor. And we pretty much have been collaborating on creative projects pretty much ever since. He helped me with my books, the books that I've written for the trade show industry. He's also helped me host events. We've co-produced a couple of, I guess you could say, non-traditional types of books, one of which we may talk about a little bit more when we get into the conversation. And we're currently working on a young adult novel together. We've led tea tastings and cooking classes and just all different kinds of things. So you know him from behind the scenes, but I'd like you to actually have the opportunity to meet my husband, Alan Arnold. So
hi, everyone.
Welcome to the front of the camera.
Thanks.
Well, starting out talking about creativity, you and I, we sometimes we have to work hard to rein it in because we're too creative, I think.
True. Lots of ideas.
Yeah. I know I'm especially bad with that. He helps me a lot because I have a tendency to just if anybody's ever watched the British version of Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch, where they have all the things flying of showing all his thoughts. That's how my brain works. Mm-hmm. So Alan has to sometimes help me rein it in. But talking about creativity, I know you've done a lot more research on it than I have. But one of the things that you and I always do is getting out and finding new ways or new inspirations.
Mm-hmm.
So, going to, of course, we can't do some of these things now, but going to museums and galleries and things like that. But I know you've got, through your research, you found some of the famously creative people in history that do different things to inspire them. So share some of those stories.
Well, I think a lot of people don't know that walking, especially walking in nature, really changes your perspective. Beethoven would take walks after lunch, and he would take his staff paper and pencil just for the inspiration, so he could have something to write it on. Charles Dickens would walk for miles. Now, Marlis and I have walked a lot this year, as you know, and I think we maybe walk a couple of miles. But one morning at 2 a.m., Charles decided, I want to walk to my country home. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, he heads out to go almost 30 miles to go to his country home.
Wow. In the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night. There's just so many examples of people taking walks and getting out. It kind of frees your mind. Einstein said he would let his mind just wander. And I think a lot of people need to wander, almost like children, to be curious about the obvious things that you're used to, the routine things, take different routes. I think it's good to almost trick the brain into trying new and different things. How many of you have brushed your teeth with your non-dominant hand?
Yeah. It's not
or
easy.
driven a different route to or from work, or tried to write with your other hand. It really does trick you and make you really think differently.
And Marco says that his creative superpower is working on how to inspire emotional connections to companies and clients and trace their emotional journey in physical and virtual events with the help of technology.
Hmm.
So yeah, emotional connections, that definitely is a creative superpower of, finding ways to give people. I know I would say my creative superpower is using words and working
Mm-hmm.
with words because, spending my pretty much my whole life trying to be an author, which I finally
Yeah.
am, and writing and teaching, it's helping people
Mm-hmm.
try to connect in ways that they might not otherwise.
Right.
And I see Nicole says she's hearing a bit of an echo. Unfortunately, it's because we're in different rooms, but it may still be close enough that it's picking Alan's mic is picking me up. So I'll try to talk maybe a little softer. But so talking a little bit more about creative inspirations, some of the different things we talked about taking a walk.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is, figuring out who creative people that you can model after. So, we talked a little bit about that when we were preparing this of, trying to think, what would this famous person
Mm-hmm.
do? So do you have any examples? I can't remember if you had any examples of
Well, it's
that.
it's it's interesting to have looked into this. People don't think of sleep, but lack of sleep affects us in a variety of ways. And I've found that a lot of the creatives either slept really long hours, they would sleep 9, 10, 11 hours a night, or the opposite. They would sleep just very little at night and then nap throughout the day. And it's been scientifically proven that naps are not a bad thing, they actually help. Um, Einstein, again, would nap after lunch. Edison would nap up to 3 hours a day. He wouldn't admit to it, but his staff knew that he was napping maybe on a lab table during the middle of the day. Churchill, his afternoon nap was non negotiable.
Hmm.
Every day, it just happened. And the same with JFK, Kennedy. His staff knew that no phone calls, no folders, no paperwork, unless it was a true emergency. They would
Hmm.
close the curtain. He napped. And then he went right back to the Oval Office and went right back to work. So napping is not a bad thing. It actually energizes, refreshes you. Your subconscious mind kicks in and you're able to connect things that maybe you weren't able to connect. We've all woken up in the morning after thinking hard about a problem the day before, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, why didn't I think of that before? That's the value of the subconscious mind kicking in.
Well, and it's interesting to hear how powerful people take nap. Maybe that's where the term power nap comes from.
Well,
But I know
that
that
could
there's
be.
companies now that are actually having um, napping pods where
Mm-hmm.
like these little chairs with domes on them where you can
Right.
actually go and take a
Or,
nap
or,
during work
or
hours.
rooms that are set aside. Yeah.
Hmm. And Nicole says her creative superpower is connecting dots to craft a picture of the situation or solution others might not be able to see. That is a really good
Mm-hmm.
superpower, to be able to connect the dots, because a lot of people, let's face it, a lot of people don't have that ability. So I think, a lot of times when we say creativity, I think people think, oh, well, I'm not an artist or I'm not a musician, but creativity can take so many different forms of,
Right.
creative thought and how to process things and how to put them together in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So, I love how everybody's sharing their
Mm-hmm.
creative ways, especially of how they work with their clients, because
Yeah.
that, I think that is really key.
Well, and it sounds like these people have honed in. They know what their superpower is, and they're out there to
Hmm.
help people. Because we all remember
Yes.
when we were in grade school, in kindergarten or first grade, if the teacher said, okay, who out there is an artist? Well, everybody's hand went up.
Yeah.
Everybody's an artist. Everybody's creative. Well, then life kicks in. You have people that by the time they're in fifth, sixth, especially up into junior high, if the teacher asks, well, who's creative? Who's an artist? You might have one or two hands come up, and you know the hands that are going to come up because you too think they're the best drawer or craftsman or whatever they're doing, and I just don't do anything. So life kicks in, you start comparing yourself, you start looking at your peers, and you're like, well, I can't do that. So you give up. And unfortunately, for some people, that kicks into a lot of areas of life, and then you just don't participate. You just kind of roll along every day until all of a sudden one day you realize, I don't need to compare myself. I'm the only one of me there is, and my superpower is different than everybody else's.
Well, that's true. That's true. I think a lot of times are stifled by the fact that we're trying to compare ourselves to somebody else. I know, talking about
Mhm.
artistic, I grew up with somebody who was highly artistic, now illustrates children's books. And so,
Yeah.
there was no way to try to compete with him. So I was just glad he was a year ahead of me in school. So finally, my senior year of high school, I had an opportunity. But one thing is practice too. I mean,
Mhm.
creativity, it's like a muscle. I mean, you've got to
It
exercise it
is.
and do things with it. And
Mhm.
um, and I liked what you were saying when we were talking about this last night about how, you know, not everything's going to be a winner.
Right. Well, and that's one reason a lot of people keep journals. President John Adams wrote 51 journals. Da Vinci, as you know, wrote a ton of journals, drawings, and
Mhm.
and Einstein is rumored to have written 80,000 uh, pages. So journaling is not necessarily just for your thoughts and your feelings, but um, it's a record of what you're thinking. How many times again have you had a great thought, you didn't write it down or record it, and then you can't remember it?
Oh, yeah.
And you talked about, experimenting. I mean, experimenting is part of life. You try it,
Hmm.
you fail, you learn from it, you go on. Imagine Edison. You're creating a light bulb. How many times are you going to try it? A
Yeah.
100 times, 50 times, 20 times? Well, I tried three things and it didn't work. Try 10,000. The next time you're creating a product or writing a book or a paper and trying to think of a title, imagine if you had to write your title 10,000 different ways to find the right one. A lot of people wouldn't stick with it.
Well, and that's true because we do have this feeling, this need to be perfect. And,
Hmm.
we've got to get it right and we got to knock it out of the park. And, it's not always going to be that way. So one of the sayings that I love, and I don't remember where I first heard this, but, learn to build the plane as you fly it.
Right.
And so I try to do that now. And so, and a lot of
Hmm.
times, a lot of times I
Hmm.
do have an idea and it's like I just start running with it before, and I'll start telling people I'm doing or whatever. And I'm like trying to figure it out on the back end as I go along. Well, I kind of did
Right.
that this spring when I did the virtual event Trailblazer Summit. So,
Right.
but it's true. It's like, don't wait until you've got it perfect. Just do
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
And another thing is, don't be afraid of being outside, way outside the lines.
Right.
One of my favorite commercials, my favorite ad campaigns of all time was when Apple did the Think Different campaign. And so the ad that they did was "Here's to the crazy ones,"
Hmm.
and you'll see in the links. I've got a link to that, but I absolutely love the message of that because it's, here's to the people, the square pegs and the round holes, and the
Hmm.
people that are way outside the lines, because it's the crazy ones who really change the world. I
Hmm.
mean, if everybody just tried to keep marching in the same line,
Right.
we wouldn't make progress. And so I
Right.
think that that's something that we sometimes get way too caught up in is, feeling like, well, I'm crazy or I'm weird or, this is not going to work. Well, stop with the limiting beliefs and just, you know, color outside the
Right.
lines.
Right. Are there lines?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who says there has to be lines,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Well, Well, and actually, it kind of leads me to another thought of conversation. Just because you're stuck on a problem doesn't mean you have to be the one that has to solve it. You have coworkers, you have peers, you have people that maybe are in completely different industries. I mean, there are people out there that get stuck on a problem, and so they actually stop and they read magazines or watch videos of different industries because who knows?
Hmm.
Maybe that industry is doing something like you talked earlier. You can be walking through a mall someday again
Yeah.
and see something. It's like, oh, I never thought about doing it that way. Um, if you think of a lot of combinations, you have Lennon and McCartney,
Hmm.
Jobs and Wozniak. And this one fascinates me. There was a group, Henry Ford, Edison, Firestone, and Burroughs. They would actually get together not only to brainstorm, but during the summers, they would actually get together and go out camping together just to be together, go back and forth with conversation. And I can only imagine being a fly on the wall in some of those conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have definitely been interesting to hear that
Yeah.
conversation. Well, and another idea too that we talked about is just trying to remove yourself from the situation and of almost having a conversation with yourself and giving
Hmm.
yourself advice. If you can take yourself out of the center of the problem
Hmm.
and try to look at it as if you were giving advice to a friend.
Right.
So, that's another technique of, how to creatively problem solve.
Right. Well, then you have to also expect the unexpected because you know things are going to happen, things are going to pop up, things are going to fall through, whatever it is. Expect the unexpected and allow it to happen. And then when the new opportunities come along, learn to say yes to them.
Well, and I think that's a really good point for us to leave it on today is, embrace the challenges,
Hmm.
embrace the opportunities, and say yes
Hmm.
and figure out how to do it, even if you have to build the plane as you fly it.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you, Alan. I appreciate you coming on camera today and sharing
Sure.
your creative insights. Thanks to everybody who joined us, and we will see you next week for virtual lunch. Bye.
Bye.
You can find all the links mentioned during our interview in this episode's show notes at tradeshowinsights.com. And if you'd like to join us for an upcoming weekly virtual lunch, you'll find information on that at exhibitmarketerscafe.com/lunch. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like more, you can subscribe to the podcast and automatically receive future episodes on your chosen device. Simply search for Trade Show Insights in Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or virtually anywhere else that podcasts are found, then click the subscribe button. Trade Show Insights is protected by the Creative Commons copyright license. You may feel free to share this recording with colleagues or embed it on your own blog as long as it's shared in its entirety and is not used for commercial purposes. To learn more, please see the link in the sidebar of the show notes at tradeshowinsights.com. Well, that's it for this episode of Trade Show Insights. Be sure to check out our show notes and archives at tradeshowinsights.com. You can also connect with me using the social media links or the contact page on the site. I'm Marlis Arnold. Thanks for listening, and be sure to join us next time for more tools to improve your exhibit results.